Combined time is 7 p.m. Liam, would you call the roll?
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member Cleister?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
7 present.
Okay, finance and property.
Okay. You know, we've got a number of things on the agenda today, don't we? A couple things we have to clear up and then some things that we said that we were going to do. So if you want to start with the first one, a resolution rescinding collection of certain property taxes. So these were in association with the tax levy passing, and we said we would eliminate other property taxes. Anything else you want to say about that?
I'm gonna let them lead this one.
So with the passage of the ballot issue in May, part of our promise to the voters and the resolution you all adopted was to release early 2 property taxes for fire operating and EMS operating, and then not seek renewal of a 3rd property tax for street paving. So what we have united is a resolution rescinding the fire and EMS property taxes early as promised, and a clarification note, I guess, is that I just said 2 property taxes, but the resolution says 3. That's because when we passed the renewal and increase, the county looks at that as 2 taxes, but we look at it as 1 ballot issue, right? So that's where the 3 comes in for the purposes of the resolution, but it is the fire operating levy and the EMS operating levy. Now, we will retain, and this will come up in another piece of legislation later tonight, we will retain the permanent levies that were enacted by voters in 2012. And just for the sake of clarity and being on the record, those levies are frozen at the value they were at in 2012. They don't increase year to year. And as long as those levies continue to bring in a sufficient amount, we can continue with soft billing, which is item 3C, which we'll talk about here on your agenda.
Okay, any issues or concerns?
This is our promise, Captain.
This is it.
Absolutely.
And then just as another clarification, we did submit this to the county tax authority, just as a draft to see if they were okay with it, and they were good as it is. So once we pass it, we'll be able to send it to them and get everything released.
Yep, thank you. Perfect.
All right, great. A good check off for the city. I motion to move item 3A to the council agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 3B. So this is now we need to get the money to pay for the fire station. So I'll let you talk about that.
Okay, so Ben and I put together a sort of a calendar of when we can do all these. And so we've been working with our municipal advisor, which is Cecina and Associates. And they will coordinate the sale of the bonds. So pricing day will be August 14th. That gives us time in the next couple months over summer to put together what they call the official statement. It's about the size of the phone book, and it's similar to the audit report. So there's lots and lots of data in there. We will then present that to Standard & Poor's, and they will rate it. So we're hoping for a better rating, even though, our rating is good, but we still always want it to be better. So we'll do that in August. August 14th, the bonds will be priced on the market. So that's an exciting day. And then the funds will come in August 28th. So that then times kind of with the CMAR is out, right? The pricing proposals are out with that. And so all of that will start, it'll come back to you after summer break around the end of August.
So we asked the contractors who passed pre-qualification to submit revised pricing proposals. That went out last Friday. All 3 firms have responded that they are still interested in the project and intend to submit new bids for the project. In the interest of, a fair bidding process, I'm not going to tell you who they are right now, but they are all Ohio firms. And so their updated pricing proposals are due August 1st, which should get back to us in time that when we go to sell bonds, we will know roughly how much we need to sell in bonds for the city.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, and then I motion to move item 3B to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, item 3C. Started to talk a little bit about this, the soft billing for residents, property owners, for EMS and fire services, including responses to motor vehicle accidents, ambulance transports, etc.
Okay, so this agenda item is not to change anything that we're currently doing, but to clarify. If you recall, we had a fire at North Canton TV Repair and Appliance. And our current ordinance was not specific about, for our auditors sufficing, specific about commercial property owners and fire services. Our current ordinances only address EMS and residents. So we are just adding that language so that we will still soft bill for fire, and if you're a commercial property owner, it applies to you as well.
Can I add something?
Mhm.
Okay, because I think there was some discussion online over the past couple of days. So this is what we've been doing.
Yes.
Okay. Soft billing also, maybe, I can give you a description, you might be able to give a better one, but basically it's just an event happens, whether it's somebody transported in an ambulance, fire in this case, and we charge a fee for that transport, let's just say in an ambulance. The person submits that to their insurance company, or we take payment from the insurance company, and there's likely going to be a difference. For a city resident, we forgive that difference. That's what soft billing is.
Correct.
And then just so people understand, if I may, hard billing is where you literally just send them a bill and say, good luck with it, you figure it out with your insurance company. Okay. So,
Well, no, we would still bill the insurance,
Okay.
but the person would be responsible for
for
the
the
balance.
difference,
too.
okay,
We would send
Okay.
a bill for the balance too.
okay, perfect. But I appreciate allowing me to clarify for those folks who might be listening way in the back of the metaphorical back, that this is nothing different than what we've been doing. It's not an additional revenue stream. Yeah, so, thank you.
How do we get their insurance?
We collect that at the time of service.
It's like,
They provide it.
Yes.
They would like it to be paid.
for somebody who has ridden in an ambulance within the past couple of years, not in North Canton, they do take your insurance information, just like going to, I mean, I would imagine if it's a severe enough issue, they're, yeah.
And for, structure fires, for example, where you're not a patient and we don't directly ask for your health insurance, even if we don't ask you, we'll typically find out because your insurance company will reach out to us and say, was there really a fire? Can you provide us the report? Because you're gonna file a claim and they'll want proof that you actually suffered a loss when you file your claim.
And I'll just add, since we had this incident before, the soft billing is only if you live in the city. If you have an event in the city, but you don't live in the city, so you live outside the city, but you're here and something happens and we have to transport you, the rest isn't soft bill just because the event happened in our city. You have to be a tax-paying resident of this city.
So can I ask you a question about the billing side of that for non-residents? When you bill that, how long do you keep that bill open and keep invoicing it to payments? Transfer those to a collection agency?
Absolutely.
Both? How long?
So there's a couple different in the billing world, and I don't pretend to be the expert. We have Ohio Billing that handles that for us. But there are certain medical claims have their timeline, like you can send a claim for up to 30 days. You have to do something with it. Then there's another 30 days. So I know that's at least 60 days. Past that, then we turn ours over to the Attorney General's office, and they do not bill us or charge us to collect our delinquents, which is why we use them. And they're very effective because they can actually withhold it from tax refunds. So, yeah.
Anything else? No, discussion. I motion to move item 3C to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, and last but not least, we always have some appropriations that we need to other expenditures. So this time, there were some in the building department, parks, dog pool, just kind of some other operating. Anything else we just have to kind of clean up at the end? Do you want to mention?
Well, that covers it.
I'll do. Okay. So very
I want to
standard
touch
procedure.
on the building department, which is the biggest one. Not really about the appropriation, but more about what's funding the appropriation, which is that the owners of the Hoover District
Oh, right.
completed their second payment of their fines due and have met all of their financial obligations under their corrective action plan.
So the other half of that, just for people listening, was $34,100.
Which means our general fund is still balanced.
Yes. Okay, all right. Now we'll do it. So I motion to move item 3D to the council agenda.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, personnel and safety, David. So, two items here, 4A and 4B, tied together in essence. So, kudos on rewriting an employee handbook and reducing it by 50 pages, I think.
There was a lot.
Consolidation, but in the meantime, removing things from 155 to streamline that process. And I think it's a good thing where employees don't have to rely on A, the handbook, or B, the ordinance to determine benefits and or policy. So I think administration would like to elaborate on that. Some of the key points would be great. See.
It was a process.
It was quite a process. We did, reduce the handbook by almost 50 pages and, we set a clear focus on being concise, clear, and comprehensive. And so, just some examples of how we could shorten it so much is that, we found 3 different places that told you how you could use sick leave, and you really only need to be told once how you can use sick leave. So, some of the key highlights are order and layout of how it's really structured. Probably spent the most time on clarifying business expenses and what travel and training is reimbursable, not reimbursable. We made some clarifications of ethics provisions. We simplified our accommodations process. It used to be 6 pages long about how to request accommodation, and now it's only 1. So nice and simple for people to understand. We probably spent the second greatest amount of time on revising and creating a comprehensive attendance policy to try and fill any and all possible loophole we could think of how people might try to abuse their time off. We simplified discipline. Each section, another way we lost a lot of pages, in each section used to have its own discipline section, so we simplified that to 1 discipline section for the whole handbook if you violate any policy. We added a generative AI policy, already talked about the duplicates, and then we made a more condensed and concise how payroll functions section. Those are sort of the largest key highlight changes for you.
I want to give a note about our HR generalist, Kelly Hart. She spent a lot of time in the administration of putting it together also, so give her credit on that. And also, just so you know, it was run by legal. We make sure all the regulatory compliance of an employee handbook is there, all the laws, like he's talking about, ADA, reasonable accommodations and things like that. We made sure we are legally compliant, FMLA, and, all the regulatory law, employment laws. So we have our legal look at it. And like Ben said, it's really so much repetitive. It was like saying the same thing over and over, where we were finally like, can we just refer to this once and then say refer to that instead of continuing? And then also, like he said, there's so many areas with employee policies that if you're not really clear, employees tend to say, well, but this way, that way, we did it as clear as we could. And especially on things where it's, policies where travel and training and other areas, attendance, where it can get a little, and we don't want to have, it not be clear about how to follow this and left for too much interpretation. So I
But
feel
it's
like
reader friendly as well, so it's not.
we also did that, yeah.
So that helps.
We'll put it in layman's terms, not too complicated.
So we think it's good. It's the best it's been. We've been working on
Yeah,
this
this
since
is-
I'm 5 years now. Just keep making it better.
Yeah.
It is the best it's been.
To give you reference, when I started, it was a terrible, it had been photocopied and then photocopied. It wasn't even a Word document. It was just all these weird pages put together, and this is your employee handbook. So one version, and then it was a little overcomplicated version, and then now this is, we feel, the best version.
Any other thoughts or comments from council?
No, I think this is good.
I'll make a motion to move item 4A to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. David? Okay, well, the second half of this, and this is adjusting chapter 155 personnel regulations to remove the items that are no longer necessary there that are covered in here. Care to get the highlights on that one?
Yes, so, sort of the guiding intent of this is that if it is a monetary benefit, it stays in the ordinance and council controls the value of that monetary benefit. If it is a process rule, so for example, comp time can be used in 15-minute increments, we pulled that out and moved it to the handbook. In addition, similar to the handbook, there were some, just sort of general cleanup things, like we had definitions for the word retirement, but then the word retirement never actually appeared anywhere in the chapter, so we didn't really need a definition. Sort of things like that. Biggest changes, I would say, is maternity leave. What was called maternity leave in this ordinance is now simplified down to just reference Federal Medical Leave Act. Well, I was trying to remember what the acronym stood for, right? Family Medical Leave. And so that covers much more than just maternity leave, and previously the ordinance only covered maternity leave. We moved the process for approval of education benefits and sick time donation to the handbook instead of the ordinance. There was one sort of carve out thing that was in 15509C1 that was for a certain set of employees about their vacation, but no employees are left that qualify for that carve out, so we removed the carve out. There was something else I wanted to make sure. Oh, and then the very last thing that I just wanted to hit on is 155.12, which was the drug testing policy. We removed and put in the handbook. I did, in your packets, you hopefully saw, there is a note in there that if council wants to retain something there, it should probably be a more general statement of like, council wishes the city to be a drug-free workplace and not the specific laboratory testing procedures, because we don't really control that. Whatever lab we contract with controls it.
I would like that reference to be there. Not covered in the handbook, though.
The problem with that though is we are not truly a drug-free workplace because some of the contracts that's in conflict with. We only drug test for DOT sensitive positions. And that's our street and service department.
Pre-employment, we drug test everything.
Right, pre-employment, we do.
Random is only DOT.
Okay.
It's very difficult to do a true random, unless you've got an outside firm randomly drawing numbers, which means an employee could end up going every other month because it's random.
And we do have that. We're part of a consortium for that. I think through AltWorks, is that where we're now? That's for our DOT people that hold CDL licenses, but not the entire city population.
Do we need a policy of if a manager or supervisor perceives
Reasonable suspicion.
right, that we can follow there automatically without having to put it in the ordinance?
That we do have reasonable
In the handbook.
suspicion in the handbook and in all but one of the contracts, maybe two of the contracts.
Think one.
The union contracts will always be, their own unique thing, but for the general employee handbook, we do have reasonable suspicion.
Which is where it needs to be. The ordinance needs to be dollar wise. The council controls purse strings, and that's where that needs to remember.
So on, and then drug testing, if an employee gets hurt on the job, they receive a drug test.
Workers' comp always requires that.
Is it the same company that does
Oh,
ours?
What?
Is it the same company that does our DOT testing?
Yeah, we do, well, we try to use local, so we try to use, I don't know, they were called Well Now, and now they're called back to Home Health. It's up there in the Acme Plaza.
Okay.
If it's after hours, because they're only in urgent care and they're not open full-time, city would have to go to the emergency room. You know, when the urgent cares close at like 8 or 10 or midnight, then they have to go to the emergency room.
Thanks. Any other questions, discussion? Good. I'll make a motion to move item 4B to the council agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?